This is an NEC PC-9821 As2, which is a computer from Japan, made only in Japan and made for Japan only. It was never released in the United States. The reason it exists, or the 98 series exists, is so that the Japanese could have a computer that could display their characters fast. And that's why they used this series of computers, this architecture, instead of the IBM PC compatibles up until like mid-90s, late 90s, somewhere around there. So what I'm going to do is a bit of an overview on the hardware, maybe a little bit of the software. I might do a minor hardware repair because there is an issue with it, and maybe an upgrade in the next coming weeks. So this specific model, the AS2, is a computer that came out right in the middle of its life, or the PC-98 architecture's lifespan, or somewhere around the middle. It's a what they call an A-mate computer, which is the capital A at the end of its, or the beginning of its model number. It's supposed to be a higher end machine of the time, which sports a nice fast 486 SX 33 megahertz. Some models had hard drives, some models didn't. This one originally came with a hard drive. The models that did come with a hard drive usually only came with one floppy disk drive. So somewhere along the line, this machine was upgraded to 2 floppy disks. The nice thing about this computer is that the front faceplate comes off very easy. There's 2 tabs on the side. You push them in, you pull it off, and voila. As you can see, there's a big gaping hole right here, and that's where the hard drive would usually go. Normally, well, not normally, I would have thought it would have been easy to install a hard drive since this computer does use IDE. However, there is a proprietary edge connector in there, and it requires a wiring harness in the form of a hard drive caddy that is proprietary. I didn't say that already, but yeah, so I don't have that caddy or cage, so I don't have a hard drive. This is only running off of floppy disks right now, and that's one of the upgrades I'm planning on doing, is getting a cage for it and installing a hard drive. I'm going to put the faceplate back on here, and then I'm going to show you the ports and stuff in the front. I'll do a full disassembly when I take it apart to do my repair, which I'll talk about here in a bit. So you just got a regular power button. It's sort of like an AT style where it actually physically disconnects and connects the power by pushing on it. Is a latching switch. It has a physical reset button over here, which with this thing I use quite often because it doesn't have a Control-Alt-Delete. It has a headphone and a microphone port here, which is controlled by the volume hidden beneath this flap. There's a speaker volume and there's a mic volume. And this speaker volume also controls the internal speaker you just saw inside of here, which also outputs the sound from the FM synthesis chips that are built into this computer. So on the back of this machine is where you start seeing things that are a little bit strange or a little bit different than what you would see from a PC compatible. There's an expansion port here. I'm not entirely sure what that's for. We have some power outlets. The input for the power, which is 100 volts AC, because this is from Japan and not from here. We got 125. We got a line out for the audio. We got a line in for whatever recording stuff. A keyboard and mouse connector, which are proprietary, and you will need the specific keyboard or mouse for it to work in this computer. We got a printer port, the serial port, and a monitor output that's marked analog RGB, which outputs at a different rate than a regular VGA. So this will not work on most CRT monitors that do not support it, and I would not recommend running it on a CRT monitor that can't protect itself, because you would probably damage it. What I mean by that is the ones that will tell you that it cannot output this resolution. However, you can buy these adapters here that convert this, I think it's a 15-pin D sub for this, to a VGA output, and most modern LCDs will actually support this output mode. So then we have the C-Bus expansion cards here, which are a little bit better designed than PC expansions from our side of the world, because you don't even have to take the cover off to get these out. It's got thumb screws here. We got this one here. I think it's a serial card mixed with a capture card. I'm not sure what anybody's capturing on a 486 SX, but you can pull on these tabs and it comes right out. This is kind of an interesting looking one. It's kind of like a double board, a 2-in-1 sort of. But yeah, it's pretty simple to install and uninstall hardware. Kind of a pain in the butt to push it in though. I'd be kind of worried about breaking things since plastics do get old. However, there's not really much in the way of plastics inside of there, as we'll see here in a bit when I do my repair in the next couple days. Also, there's a very important expansion card you'll need to get on some models, not this model specifically. It's called I think it's the 9821-86 card, which is the FM synthesis that most games will use. It has 6 channels, or 6 voices. This computer, the A-Mates, usually have it built in, the hardware built in, so you won't have to buy that card unless you want joystick ports, because this thing obviously doesn't have any joystick ports on it. Now, of course, in order to run this machine, since it's from Japan, you'll need a step-down transformer, which I ordered one on Amazon. This one's 500 watt, I think. Just got just a little bit of overhead. So I actually did modify it a little bit, as you can see by my labels here. I modified it for the PC-9821 because this thing out of the box, when you plug it in, it will give you 100 volts out of this Japanese-style plug, but it will always give you 120 off this regular American-style plug. This computer did come with the Japanese-style plug, but I don't like this whole you gotta unscrew the ground to connect it and all this nonsense. So I took this thing apart and swapped the hot wires for the AC power. So this will always output 100 on this side, and you will not want to plug any Japanese electronics into this side anymore because it will probably toast it. However, I've heard of people running these off of 120, but I wouldn't recommend that at all. I'd rather not. And of course you'll need the keyboard, which is proprietary, probably because it has all these unknown symbols that I cannot read on it. Luckily, most of the DOS prompts and commands are all in English, so if you have a basic idea or understanding of DOS, you should be able to use this, even if you can't read anything. So yeah, it's just a fairly cheap keyboard, kind of membraney, nasty, bleh. But you know what? It works. It works fine. I don't really have much of a complaint, except for when you're using it, I do miss the nubs on the F and J keys because I can't really tell where my hands are without them. So let's plug that in. So when we turn this on, you'll probably figure out why what has failed on it. Well, pretty quick. Anyway, I got plenty of floppies here for me to start up on this thing. However, most of the games will actually come with the the game images you'll find online will come with the system files for DOS. So let's start this up. Well, it's doing a whole lot of fucking nothing and making a bunch of static noise. Now let's reset it. Oh look, it works. But anyway, that static noise you hear, let me turn the internal speaker off, turn on the speakers. You'll hear a bit of noise. Well, right now it's asking for a system disk. Oh, shut up. So I'm thinking the failure of this computer right now is the capacitors for the audio amplification circuitry inside for both the line out and the internal speaker and or headphones. It's making all sorts of noise, which is unfortunate because I like the sound on this thing. So I did take it apart already and identify all the capacitors that I need to replace. Well, I'm just going to shotgun them all because they're the little electrolytic capacitors that are surrounded in the plastic casing, sort of like what the Game Gear uses almost. So they're going to be problematic in general. So I'll just shotgun and replace them all, even though I'm not usually one to blame capacitors first. But you know, the way it's failed. When I first turned it on, I tested the computer with Load Runner, which is a game that has sound, obviously, but the sound was cutting out in and out constantly, and then over time that went away. So I'm thinking that the capacitors were things that are bad. So I'm going to stick the disc in for the game, or one of the games I bought this computer for, which is Evo Search of Evolution. It's just kind of a cool game. Let's run the auto exec. This game only displays every other line, so it's going to look a little bit weird, at least on this monitor. I have another monitor that makes it look not so bad. Let me turn up the volume and you'll start to hear it. Unfortunately, the line out is a little bit quiet. I'm thinking that's another capacitor thing. This is kind of a neat little JRPG that kind of has its own take on evolution. Basically, you start out as a little fish and you evolve into other fish as you battle enemies and beat bosses and talk to other fish, and then you become amphibians, then you become reptiles, and you become, like, I don't know, mammals and aliens and shit. So it's kind of a cool game, but as you can sort of hear if I turn up the volume, this is maximum volume for my speakers, not really that loud. You can sort of see it here on the louder spots where it's kind of distorting a little bit. But yeah, just in general, the sound is kind of jank. I don't think, with the way I started this game, it's not gonna be very happy. Let me swap some discs around. Let me get this DOS disc out of here and put disc number 2 into B. Alright, now it's a little bit happier, I guess. Ah, there we go. So yeah, I think this capacitors for the internal speakers are a little bit worse. And they just sounds like crap and it's crackly and poppy. If you play it for a while or run the machine for a while, it kind of goes away. However, I don't like running computers when their capacitors are kind of like this. You never know if it's gonna damage the thing or not. So I don't know why this auto adjust is not working. It was working earlier. Let me what the heck? Let me go position upside down right there. Okay, whatever. Make me a jerk. Not sure why. Yeah. Well, apparently this is not the best monitor to display this on, so I guess I'll switch to the inside monitor after a while, after we get it repaired. But right now it's kind of iffy. Let's turn it off. Take all this crap on, and I guess I'll see you in the next couple days when my capacitors arrive. As you can see, if I switch my input to HDMI here, I have a little bit of a list. That's my list of capacitors that I ordered on Mauser, and we will be repairing this computer here shortly.